All right, everyone good on the spiritual platform? Spiritual body? Yeah? What are we going to talk about? You're more happy today? That's good. She's more sober. She's more awake. Surgery's getting better. Mataji's still smiling. I gotta know who I'm talking to here. Paramahamsa. Who's Mudatama? Asa, 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 asa. So, I didn't know you were coming. I got the message that you're coming a little late. Better late than never. So, what are we talking about? What's our topic? What do you think? We talked about yesterday those who were thinking they're happy and those who are actually happy. And then there's the rest of us in the middle, Tatastha, deciding whether we want to be Muda Tama, right? Because you may not be Muda Tama, but it's like, okay, you're suffering. If you're Muda Tama, then you won't feel anything, then you'll be happy, right? Or you have to become Paramahamsa. Then you then you have to become Shuddha Sattva. Those are the options. So you want to be, I kind of like Shuddha Tama, but Shuddha means pure, so it's not the right word. It's more like complete. So Muda, Krishna's word for the lowest ignorance, the Mudas, almost on the platform of the animals. Why almost? What's missing? No horns and no tail. That would be a problem. You'd be trending towards animal at that point. And human form, we can adjust our consciousness. So there's always free will. There's always causeless mercy. There's always some opportunity, if we get the causeless mercy from the Lord and His devotee, to adjust our situation. And even if we're not conscious enough to even realize our own suffering condition, then out of the Lord's mercy and the devotee's mercy, then they allow to come close to them, do some seva, hear some kind of katha, Hari-katha Krishna-katha, develop some sukriti, some purity in the association of the topics, and then some bhakti sukriti. Mataji, are you speaking Russian now? New York Mataji? Are you waiting for the Russian translation? Come over here. She has trouble hearing and she goes between the two translated classes. Russian and I think Bengali, right? Or Hindi. Hindi. So she's sitting between the Hindi translation and the Russian translation. And then I'm in the front. So that may make it a little confusing, right? She's trying to hide out. Then she's like, I'm listening to everything. Right? All vibration is absolute. Hearing 3 times. So what were we just talking about? No horns. He's still stuck on that. No horns, no tails. So we have chance to elevate the consciousness by association, by service. Narada Muni in previous life, a 5-year-old boy. Right? The mother doesn't even know really who is his father. Prabhupada explains like that. So not particularly high birth, when you don't know who is your father. and the mother's maidservant, and you're 5 years old, you're uneducated, so just mercy causes mercy of those Paramahamsas, Mahabhagavatas. They got to hear some vibration, some discussion, some talk, and they got to do seva, and they got to take the remnants, prasad, Mahaprasad. So they got the vibration, the medicine, they got the seva, they got the sukriti, they got the bhakti sukriti because of that service. Hearing is also service. And even taking prasadam is also type of service. So in that way, gradually purification, some piety, some sukriti, then they're praying on behalf. Oh, this nice person, they're ignorant, they're trying somehow or other and get some favor, some blessing, some prayer on our behalf. And then Krishna uses his devotees to help us, and so therefore also Krishna fulfills the prayers of his devotees. So Krishna giving power of attorney to Guru and Parampara to give Krishna's mercy, but we have to cooperate, we have to get some favor. It's a causeless mercy. Prabhupada was talking to his disciples, and they were talking about previous, what we must have done from previous life that we got such a elevated Nityasiddha, Mahabhagata, Premi Bhakta. And Prabhupada basically said, you had no sukriti, you have no bhakti. I'm creating it for you. So that means no karma, no jnana, no yoga, no bhakti, no sukriti. That's what it means, most fallen, kala shuddha sambhava. That means no real qualification. But because the Lord wants to deliver everyone, and the Lord's devotee, Paradukha Dukhi, also doesn't like when they see people suffering. Therefore the Lord and his devotee thinking, okay, how do we make these people happy? Dukkha to, what is it, sukha? Sukhi. Dukhi to sukhi. Right, how to make the hippies into happies, Prabhupada said. Of course, the hippies doing all the drugs, they thought they were happy because of this muda tama. Muda tama. It's very nice when we get some realization of mercy and we make some strong statement, and then you see like exactly that same point in the Shastra, right? And if you think about it, however Krishna is inspiring his devotee, and giving intelligence and faith and understanding, when they're speaking that, when they're prominent personalities, respected authorities, then it's written down, and then that's a Shastra. So it's authorized Shastra, because we don't know these previous acharyas, we don't know all of these authorities that Prabhupada was speaking about yesterday. So those pure devotees, Premi Bhaktas, Mahabhagavatas, Mahaprabhu, studying Srimad Bhagavatam, authorizing Goswamis to write authoritative scientific books on devotional service. So the Lord's devotees are establishing what is true, what is absolute in the presentation, what is the tattva, what is the siddhanta. And then the previous acharyas, like Mahaprabhu, was singing, chanting. So all of these Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Narottam Das Thakur, such a beautiful chanters, singers. But the words, the songs, the siddhanta, the tattva, everything is there. So Mahaprabhu is bringing the emotion of singing and dancing, which is emotional by nature, but he's putting perfect, absolute scientific information and collection of that data within the songs. So if it's also chanted by pure devotee of the Lord is manifesting there in that sound, then the emotion makes you more feelingly listen to and appreciate the music, right? The sound of the musical sound. And let me see. This thing's as damaged as I am now. It should be like a little beat up, right? It looks like too good. Of course, they put like 3 different things together there. They made something for me. 3 different pieces. But they made it nice, right? They made it look like authentic. Thank you for that, Arjun. Were you involved also? Mostly Arjun? I didn't know Arjun was creative. I think it's because of association with all the artistic people. He's becoming a little bit more artistic, creative. Although he's a musician, so he has some artistic feeling, right? So when you have this music, it makes emotion. Then you have pure devotee chanting, singing it. Now it has potency. And because it's perfect scientific knowledge from the Lord himself, the Siddhanta, according to Guru Sadhu Shastra, now that perfect explanation from the Lord and the Lord himself directly coming inside of the ear, the heart. So that's what Prabhupada did. So then once you get purified, you're getting qualified, now you want to surrender, now you want to do some service, now you're trying to understand what is philosophy. It's all causeless mercy from the Lord and the Lord's devotee. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he says, Yapatita Pavana, you're the savior of the most fallen souls. Well, I'm definitely the most fallen soul. So I'm qualifying from my side. So only I can beg, pray, cry for mercy in order to understand even what's going on, even to desire to get out of this condition. That's why Prabhupada is saying, if they're all in Tamagun and Rajagun, mostly Tamagun, Muda, I gotta get used to saying Muda Dhamma. How they're gonna understand Shuddha Sattva, transcendental topics from Vaikuntha. So again, everything is boiling down to mercy. And if we think that we can understand and do something, we're not looking for outside mercy. We're just applying our intelligence, our ability, our strength, our connections, our logic, our rationale to understand and to function. But when none of that works, like Arjuna, and he's exhausted trying to make it work, and the suffering, the pain, anxiety is only increasing, an intelligent person will say, okay, this isn't working. Whatever I think I'm doing, like we talked about yesterday, we can have this kind of, like live in this kind of theoretical, we're theoretically devotees, we're not this body, we're Vaishnavas, we dedicated our whole life, we're all surrendered to Krishna. It's all pure devotional service, although that's Brahmabhuta Prasanatma stage. We're still trying to figure out whether we want to surrender to Guru and Krishna and cooperate with the purification process and bhajana kriya to get rid of all the anarthas, anartha nivritti. So how we're coming to this platform, just jumping. So all that jumping, then the results are not there. And that's why we talked about yesterday, like the results are supposed to train us to understand what is the reality of our position. So we're getting exactly what we deserve. But we don't feel that way. We feel like, no, it's unfair, I'm getting cheated, I'm a victim. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hello, hello, please come, join us. Tribanga, Prabhu, and his wife, right?
Yes.
We saw her walking, we thought it was the sister. And then I said, oh, you know, go tell them that we're having the class. And then later, it wasn't the same lady. I said, they look very similar. So we were discussing because we had an open discussion about that situation that's going on in Ukraine and in Russia, and then of course the whole geopolitical fallout from all of this recent history. So we were connecting online because we were feeling bad that seeing all of the devotees who were supposed to be brothers and sisters and working in the spiritual United Nations, all of a sudden now they're going down back onto like some bodily platform, and then they're just identifying, oh, I'm Russian, and no, I'm Ukrainian. And so this is a very nice segue to what we're talking about, because we can artificially think, yes, we're not this body. But Prabhupada said, doing it superficially, theoretically, is not sufficient. So this situation has really made us and many devotees to reconsider how much are we situated on the platform of the soul. And that's why Prabhupada said it's not enough to say that we're not the body, but we must have to act on the platform of the soul. So because of this such a strong bodily identification, Prabhupada also said 99.9% of the people, all they know is their body and their mind. So you have very small percentage who can understand and to really act on the platform of the soul. It's not that because we're in a process, we're in a religious spiritual institution, and we have some basic information or knowledge from the scripture, that automatically this makes us all transcendentally situated. So this recent situation, all of a sudden emotionally, everyone starts being emotionally affected on this bodily platform because we're identifying with our bodies. And also it says you're identifying with your place of birth. What do they call that? Huh? Like the motherland. Everyone is like, attached to the motherland. And so, although we're externally acting like we're devotees and we're coming to Holy Dham, but they're coming to the Dham and they're having, Russian class, Ukrainian class, Russian, Vyas Puja, Ukrainian Vyas Puja. It's a madness, because you're forcing a situation where everybody's acting on a total bodily, emotional, materialistic platform. And so the devotees, the senior devotees, they should be helping to elevate the conversation and to purify the situation by reminding everybody and emphasizing how to look at everything from transcendental or soul platform. Because in material platform, Prabhupada said all of these isms are demoniac. Capitalism, democracy, communism, all the different isms, right? All the different consciousness and mentality of the people in the material world, it's all demoniac, more or less. And all the different systems of government, Prabhupada said, it's all demoniac. Because if you have people in materialistic consciousness with materialistic motivation, and they're just attaching themselves and their people to some particular type of ideology or government, it's still all materially motivated for the most part. So on the material platform, Prabhupada said everything is faulty on the material platform. Nothing is perfect here. Material platform, material consciousness means demoniac qualities. The soul by nature, Prabhupada explained, is sadhu, Satchidananda. It's a part and parcel of Krishna, has all saintly, godly qualities. But because the soul is covered over, because of this asatsanga, and all of this materialistic identification, misidentification, therefore that's on that false ego platform where all of these demoniac qualities and desires are manifesting. So there's a pride and arrogance, conceit, everyone thinks they're right, everyone thinks they're better than everybody else, we're jealous, we're envious, so much greed for power, for money, for control, so much lust, so much anger, even they're killing people, hundreds of thousands of people this time. Nobody's really worrying about all of these suffering people from both sides, from all sides. So it's not this country or that country, or this ism or that ism, or who's right, who's wrong. The whole thing is wrong. The whole thing is faulty. Because it's really a question of who's in material consciousness and who's in spiritual consciousness. So are we acting on and trying to come to spiritual platform and manifest spiritual qualities and understanding and consciousness and behavior? Or it's contaminated, more or less, under modes of material nature. It's all demoniac qualities, more or less. That means everyone has material consciousness, and defective material consciousness means imperfect mind, intelligence, and senses. We make mistakes. We have a cheating propensity. What's the other one? We're prone to be an illusion. So those are all, Prabhupada said, those are all the defects of material consciousness. So that means everyone in material consciousness on bodily platform has all of these defects. So if we're all cheating, more or less, we're all in so much illusion, we have all imperfect mind, intelligence, and senses, which is contaminated, controlled by Maya. This is all defective, it's all faulty. So we cannot come up with some perfect, absolute philosophy like Krishna consciousness, because that's transcendental. So instead of making it, one set of demons is better than the other set of demons, and we have this level of demoniac qualities versus your level of demoniac qualities. It's kind of like a really foolish argument, especially for devotees, because it's not a question of this country or that, or this party or that, or this ism or that. It's a question of, is it spiritual consciousness? Is it spiritual desire? Is it spiritual mentality and behavior and activities, or not? So nobody's right. Everyone has some different specifics there. Of course there's different specifics there. But then what is everybody's karma? Right? So there's it's a wide-ranging topic, and because we're meeting many devotees, we're asked the devotee the other day, we asked the question, where are you from? And they almost were afraid to say. And I think the person said, well, I'm from, my wife is from Ukraine, but she has a Russian passport. Right? So they don't know, like, okay, what if I say I'm from Ukraine? Right? And then I just, okay, if he's pro-Russian, then, but I have a Russian passport. Right? So the point was how they reacted to this question means that they are dealing with people who are immediately judging them based on which country they're from. And then depending on what is your political position, you're going to either immediately like them or immediately demonize them. As if, whatever the leaders in these countries and all these people are doing is, that we're all responsible for that. Especially as devotees. Whatever your forefathers did, right, it's like, it's our fault. Right? So now they're saying, what is it? In America, they have this movement where they want the white people to pay the black people money because of slavery. So you have white people who have no prejudice, who have no slaves, right? And then they're going to pay money to the black people who are not slaves, but some previous generations they might have been slaves. Does it make any sense? So you're basically paying money from some previous generations before that might have had slaves to people who were not slaves, but previously maybe they had someone in their generation that was a slave, just because of the color of their body. This is completely bodily consciousness. And then how, if all these philosophies and ideologies and isms, and it's all demoniac, how do you defend any of it? How can we defend any of it? Prabhupada says, if anything that you do that is not for the pleasure of Krishna is sinful activity. So who in any of these governments and in this conflict and war, what decisions are they making that is just for the pleasure of Krishna? So the whole thing is faulty. So to get into this, like, who's right, who's wrong, which demoniac philosophy is better than the other, how contaminated are the mind and senses of these people versus those people, what degree of demoniac qualities do they have versus what are the qualities, the amount of demoniac qualities do these people have. It's unbelievable that devotees are having this type of a conflict based on a purely bodily platform and consciousness with a total misidentification with the place that you're born. I remember when I first started traveling, and I noticed like a lot of people hated people from the United States, and I didn't understand it. I was like, why do they hate them? You're living in some small town somewhere, right? And all of a sudden now you're traveling internationally, right? You don't know that anybody hates. I didn't know anybody hates the United States. Right, and then you're taught to be patriotic and, respect all of your elders and all of the authorities, and they're trying to protect you, and they're trying to, the government is there to help the people, and the police are all good guys, and the military is just fighting for the protection of the people, right? Everybody's brainwashed. And then as we start to go, we realize how badly brainwashed are we. And that's what Prabhupada said. We're all, many places Prabhupada said this anxiety, right? This is the material disease. Many places Prabhupada said that. But in other places, Prabhupada was saying that the bodily concept and misidentification with the body and the family and the place, the country, or the place that you're born. This is the material disease. So that bodily consciousness, attachment to bodily relations, is the root cause of every other sinful desire and activity. Srimad Bhagavatam says like that. So when we were talking about, how do you preach to different people who are so emotionally, caught up on some bodily platform, and maybe they had family, relatives, people killed, so it's a very emotionally disturbed situation. So how do you talk to them? As soon as you remind them about their body or their country, then immediately emotionally they become surcharged by that disturbance, and they lose track of the spiritual perspective. So then when we were discussing through it, because otherwise everyone's okay, well, what research have you done? How much do you understand geopolitically? What are the details historically? What has caused this particular situation? How did everybody act and react based on what they were promising or not promising? I mean, there's so many details that definitely have some effect one way or the other. But most of the information that the people are getting is completely controlled information by their governments, by the, so-called authorities. So everyone, more or less, in bodily platform is completely brainwashed. And then even if you present one side or the other side, they say, no, that's a fake news, that's a disinformation. So you can't even bring any type of detail to the conversation, because what is fake video? What is fake news? What is the real report? What is the false report? So we're material life, everyone's already bewildered due to Maya. And now social media, mainstream media, all of the governments, it's control of the narrative, control of the minds, control of the people. There's this all type of manipulation is going on there. So as soon as you start to discuss it, I saw when I was preaching in Latvia, that we had a lot of Russian devotees there, but then also some Latvian devotees came. So when we started to discuss it, they had just escaped from Ukraine. They had just come out of Ukraine, out of the war zone. So when we started to discuss it, they started crying because of what they had just recently gone through. And they were so disturbed with the situation that when you discuss it just kind of analytically or geopolitically, they're so emotionally, affected from what they went through, as well as the propaganda and the brain washing that goes on by every government and all the media, sources. So then it's like you kind of can't win on that platform, because it's reminding everybody of their bodily position and condition and family and the place that they're born. And so that's what makes all of this emotional disturbance. If everyone's emotionally disturbed on a mental, emotional platform, they cannot scientifically analyze, what is valuable information, what is historic information, what seems to be, different causes and effects. They're not able to even understand it because of the over-emotional reaction. So when we were discussing this, then we understood that really when we're discussing with them, instead of bringing their focus onto their body and their family and their place of birth and their country, let's make it more of a focus on the subtle body, because everybody has demoniac qualities on material platform. Doesn't matter where you're from, what country you're from, what language you speak. Everybody has a pride, arrogance, conceit, lust, anger, greed, enviousness. Right? Krishna discusses this in Bhagavad Gita. Material consciousness, people in material consciousness, whether you're from India, or Germany, or United States, or Russia, or Ukraine, every single person is fighting with uncontrolled mind and senses. It's not a Russian problem. It's not a Ukrainian problem. It's a human problem. So if we discuss this and not make devotees focus on their body, but more on the subtle body, then you can understand on that platform, none of it is correct. None of it is, nobody's right. Prabhupada says the whole thing is faulty on material platform. So now the question is, how do we go from this, get rid of this false ego and purify all of these demoniac qualities, dissolve, get rid of the false ego, purify the consciousness so we come more and more pure, come to the level of the soul. On the soul platform, that's when all godly, saintly qualities will manifest. Prabhu, what do you think of that? What do you think of that idea? You get a microphone for Tribanga Prabhu. Because we have many different devotees here, and everybody is discussing these topics. So I'd like to also hear from your point of view. Because he wrote to me and he was very worried, like, how do we help the devotees that are fighting on this kind of platform? What do we say to them? So I'm curious, what is your understanding of that?
I totally agree with what you have given, and it is also completely in line with what Srila Prabhupada said, and this is the solution. And we have to hear it again and again, and it's very nice that you're applying it also like in a practical way, because you're seeing that it is going on, although we have heard and we maybe think that I believe that I'm not this body, but when it comes to these different situations, can be political or also attraction to the opposite sex, and then we realize actually, oh, I have not realized that I'm not this body, and so we have to hear these things, and only when we realize that we have not realized it, we can actually pray for it and understand our need for deeper understanding and for realization, and we can pray for it, and only then it will be given unto us. If we just think, yeah, I am actually fine, I've done my japa, and I've been to the class, and I don't break the principles, so I'm actually a pure devotee. I've heard these things, even amongst senior devotees. They are thinking like this, but this is not the attitude that will help us to advance. If we see the examples of the advanced pure devotees, although they are actually very pure, they see these slight little contaminations, much more than we do, that are so adopted to having these contaminations, and we're completely identifying with it, and we're thinking they're okay. So that you're picking up this example where you have practically seen amongst the devotees how this bodily identification is going on, I think I find it very helpful for me, and I think also for others. And that is the only solution for these conflicts, and therefore this Krishna consciousness has to be spread everywhere, because otherwise these conflicts and wars and in family and in the between countries, they will not stop. They will become worse and worse.
Yes. Yes.
So I thank you.
Hare Krishna.
I totally agree with what you said and how you presented it.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
I appreciated your sincerity in really worrying about the devotees, that how do we help them? Because we don't want to see everybody fighting and a misunderstanding and everyone is disturbed, and it shouldn't be like that. So we were discussing many specifics from like a geopolitical, historical, and those things may be all, more or less analyzed, but if you're in the middle of it emotionally, it's very difficult for anybody to hear that and to look at it like in an objective way, because it's so much, because of this bodily platform. And I like the point that you're saying that, this conflict, we have a conflict within ourselves, battling with uncontrolled mind and senses. And then this age of Kali Yuga, right? What is it? The age of quarrel and hypocrisy. So we're living in an age which is designed to be an age of quarrel and hypocrisy. So because a lot of us have not gone through this type of thing in our life, this seems like just a very important, immediate, shocking event, and in many ways it is if you don't have a previous experience. But if you zoom out and look at it, in a kind of a different perspective, it looks like the whole thing is designed like that, and it's just, World War I, World War II, this war, that war, right? The fighting, even amongst the family and the town and the city, and it's designed that way. So rather than just focus on one, kind of event, why not look at it that this is the way that this is designed, and then how do we overcome the internal and the challenges of this quarrel and hypocrisy due to the low consciousness, because that seems to be the essence of the situation. This is just a symptom of that particular, idea. What do you think?
Yes. And I was wondering, and I have to put this as a question because I have not yet found the answer, but I have an answer and I want to be corrected on it if it is wrong. And my question is, like in Srimad Bhagavatam, I found it very mind-blowing that Maharaj Parikshit, he was ready to kill Kali, who was torturing the Dharma, the bull.
Yeah.
And Brahma and the other demigods, they stopped him and said, no, it is wanted. It's actually God's design for this world that it deteriorates and that things become worse in Kali Yuga. So I was thinking, we know that Krishna is very benevolent and he wants our best. So why does he not only allow that things become worse and people become degraded, but he even arranges it, that there's this cycle and it repeats itself, and he allows these. He could stop Kali immediately, but he doesn't. So my question is, there must be some great benefit in this, that things are becoming worse, and we have these bad qualities also, as you mentioned, in ourselves. They're not only outside with the others. Could you shed some light for me and maybe for everyone, what is the chance in this Kali Yuga and in this becoming degraded, and religiosity is diminished. Only some little truthfulness is left, and all the other qualities that were there in other ages, they have diminished. So I have some...
Like, what is the benefit of the Kali Yuga?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Doesn't it say in the Bhagavatam that, you know, the only benefit is this chanting of Hare Krishna Mahamantra?
Yes.
That Krishna, he says, this material world dukkhalayam ashasatam. He's made it to be temporary and miserable. And he's put the threefold miseries here, Adhyatmaka, Adhibodhaka, Adhidaivaka. So this is prison house. And so this place is designed as a prison house. Prabhupada gives this example that when you're building a city, they always build a prison, because they know there's going to be some percentage of these people who are not going to follow, you know, the law and order. So someone asked Prabhupada, if God is so perfect and all loving and all knowing, why would he create this place in such a imperfect way? And Prabhupada answered this person that this is because you have made this, because of your choices and your misuse of your minute independence. You have created this situation for yourself. And so we personally and collectively, due to this influence of Maya, uncontrolled mind and senses, we're misunderstanding, we're rebellious, we're not cooperating, understanding what Krishna wants for us. All of that ignorance, that says the root cause of our suffering condition. So because of so much sinful activity, we're accumulating that sinful activity, then therefore there's sinful reaction. So the more sinful activity we perform, the more build-up of that sinful reaction or punishment that we're accruing. So the situation has to become more and more degraded in order to provide a higher and higher level of sinful reaction or punishment, because we're not catching the point. And so when we're becoming more and more, more and more disqualified, at the same time we're put into a situation where the punishment or reaction is becoming higher and higher and higher, even to the point that we're born into the Kali Yuga, which is the most sinful and degraded age. It can only bring the human being or someone in human consciousness to cry out that why am I being forced to suffer like this? We were discussing yesterday, Prabhupada was saying that the Paramahamsas, Premi Bhaktas, those who are beyond even Sattva Gun, they're enjoying a transcendental happiness, Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma. And then the Mudha Tama, the lowest of the low, Kalau Shuddha Sambhava, they are almost, Prabhupada said, like animals. And they have such heavy layers of this sinful reaction and ignorance, so much tamagunas there, that they're so covered over that they also think they're happy. So those people who are in this type of ignorance, and those people who are transcendental to the modes of material nature, who are Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma platform, they're experiencing transcendental spiritual happiness. But Prabhupada was focusing on, but the people in the middle, those people, they realize we're not happy. We're in anxiety, we're suffering, we're getting some type of punishment, some type of reaction. There's so much fear. so much, how do you say, suffering. So that suffering for a human being, someone in human consciousness, to come to the point of saying, why am I suffering? I must have done something. Otherwise other people look happy, they look reasonably going on all right, but why are we suffering? Why am I suffering? Why am I getting this reaction? Why am I being punished? So Prabhupada said, if you have a human form of life, you're meant to make this inquiry, atato brahma jigyasa. So without that suffering condition, like you were previously saying, you'll not inquire that there must be something more or something better or something more effective to actually get relief from that suffering condition. And Prabhupada said that if you are in a Kali Yuga, you're getting so much sinful reactions here. If you're not realizing that with the threefold miseries, with this birth, death, disease, and old age, dukali amashasvatam, then you're not really in a human consciousness. So those who have at least enough elevation in their consciousness that they can perceive their suffering condition, they are the ones who will inquire, what is it? Why is it like this? Why am I being forced to suffer? And then ultimately, how do I solve this problem? How do I get out of this trouble? So that naturally leads to, Krishna says, if you come and surrender to me, then I'll free you from your sinful reactions. Don't worry, don't fear, surrender to me and I'll destroy all of your sinful reactions, which is the root cause of our suffering condition. No demigod, no human being, nothing that we can do materially, intellectually, mentally, physically. There's nothing we can do that will relieve us from this suffering due to these sinful reactions. So if someone is intelligent, wise enough, conscious enough to understand that this is the only thing ultimately that's required. So unless we come to this type of level of suffering that is so unacceptable and intolerable, we will not surrender to Krishna. We'll just go on making our different adjustments, mentally, emotionally, psychologically, physically, but we'll all still be separated from Krishna. We'll still be denying that Sanatana Dharma, the eternal occupation of the soul. We'll still not be agreeing to serve Krishna. Now, if you have pure love for Krishna, you're automatically serving Krishna out of that love and affection. But for conditioned souls who have not developed that level of love for Krishna and cooperation and a mood of surrender and service, what is going to force us to surrender to Krishna? So that pain and that suffering is a blessing in disguise, and it's especially prominent in the Kali Yuga. We read recently how that even the demigods who are in the heavenly planets, who have to stay there for hundreds and thousands of years, they were lamenting that we have so much material enjoyment here that hardly anybody goes from that platform back home, back to Godhead. Almost all of them have to come again back down into the material world. So it's not a final resting place, it's not a final solution. So they were kind of saying, we're kind of condemned with our happiness for hundreds of thousands of years, and still we have to take another birth, whereas the people on this planet, they have just enough suffering to be able to, if it's too much suffering, you can't handle it, everyone goes into like a complete shutdown. But if there's, enough suffering, then we'll start to say, hey, what's really going on here? Why is this like that? And then if the suffering is then increased, it says if you get the special mercy from Krishna, then he takes everything away from you. Right? He takes your health, he takes your family, your friends, your country, your money, everything, right? And then what's left when nothing is there? Prabhupada said, then you become so humbled out because everyone like practically spitting at you, rejecting you, you know, even you lose your name, your fame, your prestige, right? Even that is ruined. So now there's nothing material. It's completely humbling position. And then the only last solution is, okay, nothing is there, nobody is there, just now let us completely surrender to Krishna. Then you become nishkinchana, you become, you know, understand what is the material world. Krishna just speeds up your understanding of it, especially when he just removes all of those impediments or obstacles or attachments that we may have. So I'm thinking that at this battle, this war, this fighting, it's such a hellish condition. And even they say, the soldiers say, you know, war is hell. So this, and then Prabhupada gives the example of the person who's in the foxhole, right? He's an atheist. And then when the bullets and the missiles are flying by his head, then he's like, oh God, please help me. So all of a sudden the great atheists are now praying to God for their survival. So it's all some type of an impetus, ultimately. And then in this Kali Yuga, because the life is so short, the demigods are saying, my God, you know, life is so short, and they can go from such a sinful position, and because of that level of suffering and pain and difficulty, they can actually come to surrender to Mahaprabhu, to Krishna, and especially in Mahaprabhu's special mercy, you can go from the most fallen position and go to Goloka Vrindavan and be in one of the four rasas with the Lord on the highest planet in Vaikuntha, on the Vaikuntha platform. So Krishna Mahaprabhu was giving the most to the least. So there is that advantage, and then Mahaprabhu has simplified the process that, okay, just chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra, just hear about Krishna, hear and chant about Krishna, and take Krishna Prasadam. Prabhupada said this is the medicine, and the diet is the Mahaprasad, Jagannath Prasadam. This is expert treatment program to purge the mad mind. So the system is so simplified and so empowered just by sitting. Prabhupada said anybody, you're rich or poor, young or old, you know, educated, not educated, everybody can come and sit and hear about Krishna, Krishna consciousness, and chant Hare Krishna. Everybody can just sit and take some Mahaprasad, Jagannath Prasadam. So it's a very simplified, you know, process. But who comes and who takes advantage of it is very few, because of this too much level of tamagun and ignorance, where people cannot even perceive their suffering condition. So if we can't perceive the suffering condition, our Gurudev Srila Govinda Swami, he used to sometimes, he's trying to preach to somebody, and he's saying, you know, you're like a two-legged animal, you're like a hog. And then we would all, like, we would a little bit start laughing, you know, Maharaja just called this devotee like a hog, you know. And then Gurudev said, what are you laughing about? You're a hog also. And you, and you, and you. And we're all laughing, but he's making the point that, you know, is anyone really that better off than the next person? We're all teetering with almost animal platform. Right? Prabhupada said yesterday, right? You know, it's animal, but not, what was the wording? Not quite animal. What was it? Remember from yesterday class? No? Prabhupada was talking about the animal consciousness and the humans who were almost like animal, right? And they started also talking about the hogs, right? They think they're doing really nice, they have a nice food stuff, right? They have it laying in the sun, right? They don't have to work a full-time job. They think they're doing quite fine. So this point is that we're not suffering enough, which is unbelievable, because people who are intelligent say, how can these people not know that they're in a suffering position? So my Gurudev, sometimes he would say, Krishna, please give that person more heavy lashes. And everyone would be shocked. I remember one time Maharaj said, you know, you're so lusty, you're so rascal guy, you know, you're going to come back in the next life as a hog. Right? And everyone's like a little bit smiling, but this devotee, he took it like, I'm getting cursed by this Vaishnava to literally become a hog in my next life. And it like shocked him. Right? Because such pure devotee of the Lord, whatever they ask Krishna, Krishna cannot say no. So Krishna's saying, Krishna, if the pure Vaishnava is saying, Krishna, this person's such a rascal, you just make him a hog in the next lifetime. Then Krishna will be like, all right, if that's what you've determined. Otherwise, why do those words hit that person so heavy? Because they know he's not just saying, he's threatening. Right? Prabhupada said in the beginning, I just said, come, chant, dance, take prasadam, go back to Godhead. And Prabhupada said, if I actually told you what was required, none of you would have joined. And Prabhupada said, I cheated you. And he laughing. So he little cheating. And of course, cheating of sadhu, guru, that's mercy. So he tricked us to surrender. And then you get enough information to realize, okay, I can't go back. So that's not really an option. Now I got to go forward. And that's where all the hard work is going to come from. So this Russian, Ukrainian lady we met the other day, she was saying, before this situation, we were thinking we were very well situated spiritually. And because of this situation, we were shocked, understanding our own situation and watching how everything is unfolding. We got such a shock that we realized that that wasn't at all spiritual. So that's why they're trying to how do you say, grapple and deal with the fallout of the heaviness of this situation, because their faith and their so-called understanding of their spiritual position is directly confronted. And then they realize, wow, that was very sentimental, that was very theoretical, wishful thinking, however you want to say it. But when it really comes down to it, we're not really on that type of spiritual platform where we have that kind of spiritual, shelter and protection. And if the ultimate test is death, that's not the time to find out that your faith, is sentimental or superficial. So there needs to be heavier and heavier tests which expose what is our actual position. And like you said, then we realize, wow, I'm not where I need to be. Now you become more greedy and more determined, like, okay, I need to do better. I need to become better. I need to improve myself. Now you're spiritually hankering how to get better association, how to more seriously, dedicate yourself to the process, how to chant more seriously, etc., etc. So anyway, that was, I'm sorry, a bit of a longer wind kind of explanation, but many, many points, we can consider. Most of us, I don't think we would have surrendered if we were not suffering. I don't, maybe some may have come, to inquire about the absolute truth, but I'm not sure how many of those persons are there. I think for the most of us, it was too much suffering and anxiety and disturbance that we just said, oh, okay, I cannot live my life like this. This is unacceptable. It's not an option. And then you find out, okay, how do you really change? It's very almost impossible to change, because we're so deep-rooted in our understanding, in our attachments, in our addictions. So to overcome that, it really needs divine spiritual intervention. And unless we're crying to Krishna, unless we're crying out to God, how we'll get that special mercy from the Lord? His compassion and His mercy and blessing. So every soul is being forced to cry And if we're conscious enough and fortunate enough to be able to perceive our suffering condition, and it's sufficient type of suffering condition, then only last thing is to cry out to God. And Prabhupada said, just like when you're chanting, should be like a baby crying for the mother. But Maya has made us all comfortable and everything is reasonably solved and we've become complacent even as devotees. We have some philosophy, we have some reasonable healthy lifestyle, right? So we've become very complacent and stuck. And it sometimes takes like some really big shocks to our life, to our personal situation in order to really wake us up to what is the reality, and now moving forward, what do we need to do to, improve ourselves? I think so. I hope that was all right for you. Hare Krishna. Krishna has a perfect plan, and sometimes, we want to enjoy here, but this place is not for that. It says the human form of life is made that you will do this tapo divyam, purify your heart and your consciousness, get free from demoniac qualities, develop more saintly, godly qualities, agree to cooperate and serve the Lord in a mood of loving devotional service. That's the point of the human form of life. But we're not understanding that point. We're not understanding that this life is a preparation for the next life. We're just busy trying to manipulate and adjust this life for our own enjoyment. But Prabhupada's, I remember my Gurudev, he said, this is Dukalayam Shasutam, is a temporary miserable place. If Krishna wanted this to be a happy, blissful place, he would have made it that way. You want to associate with perfect gentleman and perfect lady and have a permanent stay and real genuine peace and happiness, you got to go to Vaikuntha. And if we don't have a desire to go there and a desire to qualify ourselves to go there, then what will it take? What will motivate us? We're not being motivated by the offer, by the love, by the affection. Maybe some attraction is there. So therefore that Krishna, Guru, chanting holy name, lifestyle, that's attracting us. But then you have the chakra, you have the heavy lashes behind us of Maya basically threatening that if you don't agree, then you're going to go back to your previous suffering position. So now, okay, that's not really an option, but we still want to be happy, because that's the nature of the soul, but we're understanding you can't be happy materially. And we're trying every single other thing to be happy materially without surrendering to Krishna. And when none of that finally works, and we're actually convinced that as long as you have uncontrolled mind and senses, and we're performing sinful activity and sinful reaction, there is no peace and happiness on this bodily, mental, material platform. We have to be convinced of that. So without this reaction, without this punishment, without this suffering, what exactly is going to motivate us? Prabhupada says that if you're very intelligent, you can learn by hearing. If you're not very intelligent, you're not learning by hearing, then you have to learn by a stick. So we're like, well, it sounds much better to learn by hearing and not by a stick, but then we're not really hearing, we're not really adjusting. I remember one time I said to one devotee, one Prabhupada disciple, I made a statement like, live and learn. And he said, yeah, if you're learning. Otherwise it's like a slogan, yeah, live and learn what to do. It's like too cheap. Live and learn. Yeah, did you learn? Are we learning? So we're not learning. We're being stubborn. We're being rebellious. We're thinking we can make our own way, our own path, our own decision. So we're acting independently. We're kicking and screaming. We're grumbling and complaining. So therefore, what is going to move us along? So there needs to be some motivation. It's like the parent, you say to the kids, please do like this will be good for you, this will make me happy, it will make you happy. And you hope the kid, the child accepts it. But like all children, naturally, they become rebellious. They become, you say apple, they say orange. They say, anyway, just we're contrary to whatever our parents, whatever our authority is telling. Rebellious. And then what happens is, then we have to be disciplined. Right? The parent would rather just say something and you just cooperate, and you just go along and participate in a happy way. But because we're not listening, we're not behaving properly, then we need a discipline. And then we're not catching the point, we need more discipline, more punishment. The punishment has to come to such a point that you just say, okay, I caught the point, I agree, I don't necessarily like it right now, but I'm prepared to surrender and accept it. What's the alternative? So this is not exactly, the motivation of pure loving devotional service. It's almost seems like that when we're convinced that there's no alternative but to surrender to Krishna. If we're smart, if we want to get out of our suffering condition. So now it's like, okay, if I'm dedicating my life to be devotee, Prabhupada said there must be something on the positive side. It's not this, not that, not this, not that. There needs to be something positive. So therefore you have association of nice devotees, hopefully, and chanting, nice lifestyle, nice prasadam, nice opportunity to learn how to do devotional service in a safe, protected environment, which make you more peaceful, more happy. So this is an offer that's enticing us and it's attracting us. Association with Sadhu Guru Vaishnavas, and those discussions and the meaningfulness of those talks and that information is so much more valuable than just this Gramya Katha and the politics and all this other useless, frivolous type of talking, which is a waste of time. So want to learn something, want to get some benefit, some spiritual benefit, improve our life, how not to be a demon, how not to have uncontrolled mind and senses, how to become gentleman or lady. Prabhupada said, I'm just trying to make a perfect gentleman, perfect lady. First become a brahmana. Develop Brahminical mentality and qualities. And that's a stepping stone, Prabhupada says, to Shuddha Sattva, transcendental platform. So we need to improve ourselves, but we need the motivation because we're lazy. It says that the people in the Kali Yuga, right, they don't have a good brain substance, they're not so smart. And then even if you have a little bit of smarts, we're completely accepting the wrong authorities and getting so much mis and disinformation, becoming so much bewildered and brainwashed. And then it says in Kali Yuga, everybody, they have a short life, short, not good intelligence. They're always, always disturbed. They're lazy and unfortunate, right? Inauspicious. That's what the birth in the Kali Yuga means. So we're not so smart, and we're very lazy, and we're stuck in our way. We're very conditioned, like a worm in the stool. We're thinking it's cozy, and we don't want to really adjust ourselves. So that's why Prahlad Maharaj says, better start when you're a baby, you're a child. Then you can get trained. But for most of us, we joined later. So now all the bad habits, bad conditioning, misunderstanding, bad qualities, right? That's what we're bringing to the picture here. That's what we're bringing to the process. But still, it's so powerful with the mercy of Guru and Krishna, chanting, prasadam. It can gradually purify your heart, your mind, and your consciousness. But once everything is a little better, we have tendency just to rest on our laurels and just say, okay, now I'm doing pretty good. Now my immediate crisis, the crisis management that was my life before, is reasonably settled. Now I have a kind of easygoing life. And then we get stuck there. So Krishna always, for his devotees, he always keeps his devotees like in the trouble. Right? That's why you see most of the devotees, they all have money problems. Right? They're all trying to materially survive. Like he gives you just enough to like survive. Very rarely will he just give you like so much more. And then when you're doing your service, like everything is okay, everything is so nice, if it just stays like this, right? And then all of a sudden, like the next day, the next week, the next month, Krishna just pulls out the rug. And now everything is like topsy-turvy, everything is upside down, everything is like... We want to line everything up and everything just goes like this perpetually. But nothing will stretch us, nothing will make us to move. So we have to be constantly like prodded along and shocked and pulled and dragged and attracted and beaten and whatever it takes for us to somehow or other cooperate to go to this next level, this next step. Make sense? You're young, man. You have a lot to look forward to. But you're fortunate because if you get this information early enough, it's easier to adjust your life. If you wait too long, it's very difficult to adjust according to the conditioning. That's like the beauty of the youth, is you can decide how you want to be, what you want to be, what you need to do. It's still adjustable. The longer we wait, the more difficult it is, the more conditioned we become. Because there's that saying, it says, well, this is just the way we always thought about it. This is just the way that we always did this. Whether it worked or not. Anyway, this is just the way it always is, always was, probably always will be. And that means we're going to be stuck. So Krishna, Guru, mercifully, they keep putting us in these situations which are forcing us to move. And we don't like it. Right? We want to be comfortable. We want an easygoing life. But Prabhupada says an easygoing life and advancement in Krishna consciousness, that doesn't go nice together. So if you want nice, easygoing life associating with perfect gentlemen and ladies, you have to go to Vaikuntha. You can't settle down in the prison house. and think that you're going to just be I'm just in the corner of this prison cell or the corner of this prison and find some nice association and some nice, peaceful life. Right, Sergey? Which part of the prison are you going to go to find some peace of mind, some perfect gentleman, lady to hear from, associate with? Doesn't exist. But Maya keeps saying, no, you can be happy here. You just need the right marriage, the right job, the right material situation. You have to have the right place. So everything materially, if all of this thing lines up nicely, definitely you can be peaceful and happy. And we're like, really? And Maya's like, yes. I said, really, it's going to work this time? And Maya's like, yes. Now you've learned everything. Now you just make these material adjustments. Then you'll be happy. And we just keep trying for it, endlessly. And Prabhupada says, then when you become exhausted and frustrated and disappointed enough, and you become disgusted by the whole prospect, Prabhupada said, then you'll surrender to Krishna. Mother Devahuti, when she surrendered, right, to Kapila, said, okay, I'm exhausted. I'm frustrated, exhausted, I've had it. Now I want to surrender. So this world is made in such a way that whatever Maya is promising, you get a little bit of hope, you get a little bit of pleasure, and then you get a whole lot of heavy reaction and suffering that comes from that. That's why Krishna says those who are intelligent and wise, they know on this platform everything has a beginning and an end. And a little bit of happiness, but so much suffering you have to pay for that. It's not worth it. At some point, we're going to realize it's just not worth it. Then we'll look for some higher thing. Prabhupada said, you want to be happy, you don't know how to be happy. You're trying to be happy materially. So we're meant to be happy. I say this to the devotees all the time. We are meant to be happy. If we can't do it materially, we better figure out how to do it spiritually. Because it is not natural to just be miserable and unhappy materially and spiritually. It will not last. So if we can't, and it's designed not to work materially, we better figure out how to do this spiritually. And if we will just be more simple and cooperative and stop grumbling and complaining and finding fault with everything and everyone, try to see the positive, count the blessings, try to be appreciative and grateful, then our life would be more enjoyable on the spiritual side. Do you agree? I'm just preaching to myself. I'm being reminded. I hope that also helpful for you. We didn't come here to try to be some kind of a saint or a sadhu. We came here how to get relief, how to solve the problems in your life, how to get free from stress and anxiety and suffering. Now we found it, we're realizing how it's working, what works, what doesn't work, and we're discussing that thing. So we have to take shelter, protection spiritually, then we'll be peaceful. If we're not surrendering, we're not the shelter, spiritual shelter and protection, Prabhupada said you'll be like a dog out on the street. You have no master, no one taking care of you, you're just basically dog-eat-dog world. Everyone's just fighting for existence. So what kind of lifestyle, what kind of association, activities we want, everyone has to ask themselves those questions. And then we have to make the necessary decisions and priorities and what's really important in our life. You know, when we first started discussing all of this geopolitical situation, you know, I was thinking, you know, most people, even if you really study everything and have a pretty good grasp of what's really going on, almost nobody really even understands that. So instead of us trying to spend all this time and energy trying to explain all of those details and what's true and what isn't to people who pretty much don't know almost any of that due to brainwashing and a lack of exposure or information, and then as soon as you